Right Honourable Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, Right Honourable Peter O'Neill, Deputy Prime Minister, Honourable Prime Ministers, Ministers and Deputy Prime Ministers attending the conference of the Pacific Local Government Forum, mayors, and all distinguished local government leaders of the Pacific. Let me, first of all, thank you again for giving me another opportunity to say something to open or to join the Right Honourable Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea in the opening part of this forum. The government and people of Tuvalu, of whom I'm Prime Minister, I'm very honored to be Prime Minister, are deeply touched, as I said last night, by the decision to appoint me as patron to this important forum. First of all, I wish to acknowledge with the deepest sense of gratitude the recognition that has been bestowed on me and on my small island nation of Tuvalu. And it is my privileged pleasure to accept the appointment or the election or to the position, and to assure this body that I will do my best to serve the role of the patron. Let me now, before I go into my remarks, perhaps on behalf of all the visiting dignitaries to the third symposium of local government ministers, mayors, development partners, and all stakeholders involved in promoting the work of local government and the role of local government in furthering the democratic governance and development of Pacific communities. Express my warmest and sincere thanks to our host, the government, Prime Minister, ministers, local mayors, the local government, and the people of Papua New Guinea for their great hospitality in organizing and hosting this PLGF conference. As usual, we are impressed by the level of progress that we are seeing made by PNG on many fronts. The level of infrastructural developments ongoing in Papua New Guinea, in Port Moresby, and also the level of initiatives that are being advanced by various entities of Papua New Guinea is impressive. And we, as visitors from small island developing states of the Pacific, have no other conclusion but to believe that this will have significant social and economic spin-offs to the benefit of local communities as they strive to further advance sustainable development for people of Papua New Guinea. We applaud the progress that is being made by the government of Papua New Guinea under the able leadership of Prime Minister Peter O'Neill, and strongly support, of course, PNG's efforts in promoting local government work, not only for the local communities in Papua New Guinea, but we strongly believe which can also be of huge benefit to the Pacific communities as a whole. We applaud the progress. I also commend and applaud the initiative for the setting up of the Pacific Commonwealth Local Government Forum to promote the role of local government and the efforts to build this particular, or to convene this particular Pacific Local Government Forum in PNG. And sincere commendations also go to development partners, and in particular to the governments of New Zealand and Australia, for their funding support to the forum's work. Excellencies, the choice of theme for this year's conference, the Pacific Future, Building Our Local Communities, could not have been more appropriate. It is a very pertinent and important call and a reminder to us all of our responsibilities expected of us by our respective constituencies with respect to the urgent need to build vibrant and resilient communities with adequate capacity and resources, be able to mitigate and navigate the rapidly changing socio-political and economic landscape. The theme also correctly underscores that given the global sustainable development agenda and its various processes of review and refine, and I refer to the ongoing review of the Rio Plus 20 and the UN post-2015 Sustainable Development Goals processes, it is crucial that we Pacific leaders also reassess what role the local government can play in collaboration with the national governments in building Pacific communities. Throughout the Pacific, the dynamics of interdependency, trade and commerce, the influence of the media, of Facebook and the internet have brought about unprecedented changes. They have created not only opportunities of fascination and for development, they have also brought about serious challenges of extreme vulnerability for us island communities in the Pacific, which are already vulnerable. In my own country of Tuvalu, and I'm sure it is the case also in many other small island developing states, like in our brothers Kiribati and many other Pacific states, the double effect of the global financial crisis, which caused loss of investment to our meager financial resources, such as the Tuvalu Trust Fund, a loss of overseas employment and economic development for our seafarers and people, and particularly the adverse effects of climate change has worsened our unique vulnerabilities to external forces. They have given sense for great anxiety and uncertainty to our people. 60% of the population of Tuvalu now reside on the capital island, Funafuti, causing depopulation on the outer islands whilst creating problems of pressures of wastes, of water, and all sorts of other social and economic problems on the capital island. We have to create incentives to encourage these people to go back and remain on the outer islands, their home islands. And for this to happen, the national government has limited capacity to operate or put into actions initiatives. We have to rely and work closely with the local governments on the islands and seek their collaboration for the improvement and delivery of good governance, as well, more importantly perhaps, of our services to the people. We must seek their cooperation and collaboration. The lessons that we have learned from this double hit, global financial crisis and climate change. Yes, it is right to think globally. Yes, it is right to be weary of the processes ongoing. And also it is right to welcome partnerships with development partners, investors, but built on mutual trust and confidence. But we must act locally. Think globally, but act locally. This brings to mind the saying by one of the famous presidents of the US, all boats must rise together with the tide. We cannot just focus on national authorities and national bodies to move up, to rise with the tide, and ignore the majority of the people on the outer islands or rural areas. We have to give them opportunities to rise together with the tide of development, the tide of empowerment, to give them access to opportunities and encourage them to go back and live on their beautiful islands. We strongly believe that our long-term security and sustainable development survival is based on our own local resources and exploiting these to the benefits and to the security of the people. The lands, the food crops, the fish in the sea, the coconuts, the islands themselves, and the people. It is critical in this context that we in this forum take advantage of these processes not as challenges but opportunities to advance the role of local governments, of the local leaders, of the custodians of cultures and traditions, to support the overall national development for the security, long-term survival of people on the islands in the Pacific States. We must also, and I'm sure many of the Pacific States have done this already, devolve to them the power, the legal authority to run and manage their own affairs, as well as giving them adequate resources. It is also important, in my view, that in doing so, in enhancing the role of local government, that we must be aware of, we must take into full account the ongoing processes of reform at national level, regional, and at international level. At the regional level, I must say something about what is going on in the work of the Pacific Island Forum leaders. We have just received the report of Sir Mikere Morota, a son of Papua New Guinea, a leader of Papua New Guinea, to review the Pacific Plan and to digest what has gone right, what has gone wrong in the expectations of the leaders for the sustainable development of islands. Sir Morota has laid down very thoughtful views on how he sees the Pacific regional cooperation and collaboration should move forward and advance into the future. I suggest that we all take account of the findings of Sir Morota, although the review report will be tabled for full adoption by the Pacific leaders at the upcoming forum in Palau this year. In Apia, Samoa, come this September, no less than 5,000 people, delegates from all over the world, will converge for the International Conference on Sustainable Development of Small Island Developing States. The conference will review the Mauritius strategy on sustainable development of states, and also will provide an opportunity for states and their partners under the UN framework to review the UN post-2015 Sustainable Development Agenda. Against all this backdrop, the convening of this forum, therefore, in Papua New Guinea, in Port Moresby, is very, very timely. It is vitally important that local government ministers, mayors, and stakeholders attending this forum take stock of the role that local government can play in building Pacific communities and craft a relevant input into the reforms to be negotiated under the forum, the Pacific Islands Forum, and also under the SITS conference in Apia, Samoa. In my own view, the UN post-2015 SDGs must move forward beyond the MDGs. As we know, the MDGs only focus, or particularly focus, on poverty eradication. For SITS, poverty is an issue, but it has to be poverty plus. Why? Because no matter whether we improve the situation of poverty, our physical situation remains the same. The islands will remain ever vulnerable to effects, particularly of climate change and sea level rise. So MDGs only is dealing with poverty eradication. It doesn't cover all the sustainable development concerns and security of SITS. We must move beyond that and focus perhaps on Target 7 of MDGs itself, and that is the sustainability and security of the environment. And we think, I totally believe, this should be the basis of review for the post-2015 UN Development Agenda. We must make sure that we have an input coming from the cities, coming from the villages, coming from the Pacific communities, to have this strongly reflected in the outcome of the SITS conference and also of the UN review. We must also seek from the international community recognition of the role of local government and, of course, the fulfillment of the many promises for special SITS window of funding. These have been said and been expressed in many, many, many international global conferences. But we are yet to see the walking of the talking. We have to seek from the international community practical fulfillment of these rhetorics. This said, we have also to acknowledge the input and contributions that our traditional partners, especially in New Zealand and Australia, Commonwealth, and that have been giving us to support us in our own national development. Considering the unique vulnerabilities of us, this forum must come out with strong partnership proposals to recommit the local government to the principles of democratic governance and sustainable development, highlighting in particular the good governance declarations of the Commonwealth made by CHOCOM and the Pacific Islands Forum leaders. These are crucial to be further underscored. I strongly believe also that given our environmental vulnerability to effects of climate change, it will be imperative for this forum to issue a strong statement on climate change and makes or proposes an input into the outcome of the SITS conference for an early conclusion of an international agreement on legally binding targets on greenhouse gas emissions reductions for the whole world. We cannot run away from our islands. We cannot be forced to run away from our islands. The resolve should be we must stay back and argue and fight our case at the international level for those people who cause the problem to take the lead in actions. We must save the islands in order to save the world. And the resolve, as far as Tuvalu is concerned, save the islands only by saving the islands that we can save the world. Right Honourable Prime Minister, thank you for the opportunity for me to say something, but as patron and also Prime Minister of Tuvalu, I wish the conference here every success in its deliberations. I wish Papua New Guinea government and people of Papua New Guinea all the best in its efforts to achieve sustainable development and prosperity for the people of Papua New Guinea. Thank you very much.